Hello everyone, I'm Leslie Cornwell, Certified Nurse Midwife with Midwifery Business Consultation. This next section has to do with creating autonomy and access through business ownership. We're going to be talking about the benefits for midwives and the full scope autonomy, and for your staff on your team, the benefits of giving them more autonomy. There's so much potential, especially nurse midwives that tend to pick the hospital setting to work in, maybe to get started before they create their private practice. You don't have nearly as much autonomy and scope and decision making and care with being part of a bigger system than you do if you run your own private practice. So legal disclaimers we put on every single one of our presentations. This is general information only. It's not intended for legal specific expertise is required in your area. Everybody's rules and regulations are different, and depending on what type of educational background you have, your certifications, your skill set, and the business structure really will determine that individualized situation of what works. We try to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, so there's no claims that things can change in a year in rules. So we try our best to give you the best information possible that you can customize to your own area. So the objectives of today's conversation has to do with what is autonomy. We hear practice to your full extent, being autonomous, but what does that really mean? The different types of autonomy, why it's so important for autonomy, the advantages to you, the advantages to your staff, and how do you create autonomy within your practice? So let's go to the basics and not make any assumptions. What is autonomy? Autonomy is being able to practice to the full extent of your educational background, your scope. Definitely want to look at your own rules and regulations of your state, because maybe your national certification says you can do X, Y, Z, but there's state guidelines that are more restrictive. So when I'm talking about autonomy, I want you to be autonomous as a midwife to your full scope based on the local standards of your area. And autonomy is important because for you to be able to serve newborns, primary care, well women services, preventative services to the full extent, there's so many opportunities with midwifery practices to add all of our services, not just birth and prenatal and postpartum care. And it has to do with autonomy too to our staff. When we hire people, we want to give them freedom. We want to empower women, empower our staff to have that good work-life balance, be able to be moms, be able to do professional development, be able to be part of a team that's making great things happen in our community, but also being able to have, so that's why I like a lot of my staff to be independent contractors, because it gives them that extent of autonomy. They make their own schedule, we have a conversation, we make projects together and make a win-win situation. So some of your staff will be directly hired by you just because of their role, more of an office manager, receptionist versus like a birth assistant or a midwife colleague. Autonomy increases satisfaction for you, it increases satisfaction for your team. When we're not being micromanaged, we tend to be more creative, we tend to go above and beyond, we tend to be happier, more productive. We'll stay around long term on a project, we'll fight through the highs and lows because we know we can make choices. Control and choice is very powerful mentally and in today's very busy healthcare system. So traditionally, a lot of facilities will have higher level staff have more autonomy, and so our goal is your project managers, your directors, your office managers, the people that are higher up are going to have more autonomy than the people that are lower in your staffing job responsibilities. A receptionist doesn't have as much control of flexibility. If you have office hours, you're going to expect them to be there when your clients are coming in. If you're more administration higher up, you are going to be able to do a little more autonomy than the average staff. So there's different types of autonomy. There's professional autonomy, and that has to do with practicing to your full scope. If you decide to join a hospital system, a doctor's office, even another midwifery practice, you're going to be given a job description, you're going to be given hospital privileges, bylaws, policies, protocols determining your professional scope of practice. And so when you're a business owner, you get to determine the full extent of the autonomy that you offer, your midwife colleagues and the team offer, and your entire staff. So employee autonomy, a lot of times it's fun when you have a new role, a new job description, have your team help you make that position, help the job description expectations. The more autonomy we can give our staff, we give them good training, we give them good tools. You're not expected day one just to hire them and they do their own thing. You need to make a foundation that you know they're competent, they're qualified, and then you let them spread their wings and be more autonomous in working on projects and giving them delegation. Managerial autonomy, having office managers, having project managers, having people that can really be able to do their thing. They know your mission, they know your goals, they know a tentative timeline, you need XYZ done. They can pick and choose what they're going to work on, when they're going to work on it. They just have an expectation of these things need to be getting done in a certain time parameter. Team autonomy, I mean, when you know that you are not in the office that day, you're doing home visits and your staff is working, having that team autonomy and trust where you're not monitoring them, you don't have cameras, you don't have extensive clocking in and out systems, you have a trust and you have your team respect, it goes a long ways. And you just want to, there's a balance between being automated and customized. Like everybody's job description, everybody's situation is unique. If you have an awesome staff member that all of a sudden got sick with her pregnancy and she needs to be on limited bed rest, you could tweak and give some autonomy ideas of doing some projects from home, doing it more of a customized work restriction. If you have a midwife that all of a sudden her mother passed away and she needs to go out of town, like being able to have autonomy within your team that they can, as long as we are taking care of the families, our mission, our whole point of running this business goes smoothly, we can pick up each other's challenges, and that's the whole point of the autonomy. We want each other to help solve the problems. You don't want the boss to be micromanaging, making all the decisions, because then your team gets ingrained that they can't make a decision on their own. So autonomy in the workplace, it's not working in isolation. I think a lot of midwives think, oh, I'm a solo midwife and I'm autonomous because I just do my own thing. It's not about just working in isolation. It's about being part of a team, but each person can control what projects they're going to work on, how they're going to answer a phone call, how they're going to make an educational presentation, how they're going to do the networking with the community. You've got a vision, you've got a goal of how you want the overall project to be processed, and then giving your team that autonomy and the respect so that they can work out the details and present to you what they've worked on. So workers that are able to make more choices, day-to-day operations, how the office flow goes, how to set up the supplies, when your call coverage rotation, are we going to call cell phones, are we going to call pager as midwives, the more autonomous we can make each other, it makes everybody so much happier. So the need for autonomy, especially as entrepreneurs, when you learn yourself how, when you work for a bigger system, it's hard because you're like, okay, this is an outdated policy, this isn't safe, this isn't cost effective. You can't just change it. You have to, okay, this is my paycheck, this is the job description they gave me, this is the current hospital bylaws. If we want to change things, we have to go through this meeting steps and protocols, and it takes time. And when you are autonomous and you're running your own private practice, you can update your policies instantly, you can work on a great project, you can determine your office hours, you can determine what type of patients you want to see, versus if you work in a doctor's office clinic, they're going to tell you, you have 20 minutes to see this type of patient, you have 40 minutes for this type of patient, you have 15 minutes for an ROB. If you're running your own private practice, you can determine, I'm going to do for an initial visit myself. I'm not going to have my nurse in the office do it. I'm going to do it for an hour, hour and a half. I'm going to do future visits 30 minutes. I'm going to do it at home. Versus if I work for another facility, they tell me we can't do home visits. So having that autonomy where you can customize your quality, your services, your relationship with the families. Because like in an office clinic, it's hard because sometimes you have to go through the call system versus you want to give a certain client, hey, I'm on call for you, here's my cell phone number. You may or may not be able to do that. So a lot of midwives, we like to be free. We like to offer midwifery services on our terms. We have a desire to not be controlled and micromanaged, and we want to flow that mentality onto our staff and even our clients. We want our clients to be autonomous. We want them to make their own decisions. We be part of the team. We help them. We advocate. We don't want to be making decisions for our staff and our team overall, because we want to have confidence. We've trained them, we've educated, we've been a great resource. And so there's a lot of different reasons, conscious and subconscious, why people start a business, but it really has to do with that autonomy. You can decide when you have a vacation. You don't have to ask anyone. You have to solve your own challenges. You get to make the decisions. You get to make life on your terms, which I think a lot of midwives love to do. So these are many advantages. We love to be happy. We like to be engaged. We can choose. I'm going to work my butt off this winter. You know what? My kids are in school. I'm going to work lighter on the summertime. I am going to determine what my work structure is going to be like. Yeah, we have to think 9 months in advance when we're determining our delivery volume, but you could say, you know what? I'm going to take 8 deliveries a month for November, December, January, but I'm only going to take 2 for June, July, and August because I want to spend more time with my kids. Running your own business, you can do that. You can't go to your boss at a bigger healthcare system and give those same terms. They will laugh at you and they will tell you to go run your own private practice. So you just have to look at the goods and bads of this option, and you determine your work-life balance. You get to determine if you're going to work 100 hours or if you're working 20 hours. You get to determine if people that are working for you get to call you 24/7 if there's an issue, a concern, or you get to put boundaries and expectations of what that looks like. So there's different ways to create the autonomy, getting a good structure, getting good time management, training manuals for your staff. You can have incentives if there's evaluations, include their projects, include how many times they call in, how many vacations they take. You can give your staff profit sharing bonuses, stocks. You can give them a direct incentive for them working harder and being autonomous and getting that incentive of projects and going above and beyond. Think of professional development. If you want certifications, you want training, you can say, hey, I need 3 people in my team to go to this conference. Who would like to go to it for me? And so that autonomy in the team, you're not just saying, hey, you're my birth assistant and I want you to go to this stable course next weekend. That's very different than, I think it would be great for a few of us that are on the team to get the doula hypnobirthing training. I think it would be great for a couple of us to be LCs. Who would like to be part of that venture? And so that autonomy, that decision making really will improve your staff morale, your the projects that are brainstormed. When your team truly feels they're autonomous within their scope, within their degree, their education, their job description, you want to hire those best of the best people. I always stress I would rather have somebody that is brand new out of school, that is feisty, is visionary, is just has the passion and drive, versus someone that's been doing it for 20 years and they're just worn out, they're burnout, they're just, it's harder to teach an old dog new tricks. Then I would rather initially invest in a newer graduate midwife that has the passion, has the drive, is going to bring far more to the table once we get past that learning curve than someone that's been doing it a while and isn't going to change, and this is the way they do it, this is their terms and their way of flow. That flexibility, like some parts of a midwifery practice, you can provide flexibility, but then there's other parts you can't. So when I talk to midwife colleagues and we talk about contract arrangements, like you can pick which days you want to make your office. Obviously, you want to do it before the schedule is out there. If you want to work Monday and Tuesday, you want to work Tuesday and Thursday, you want to have Fridays off, that's totally fine. But just knowing if we have a birth and we have home visits that are time sensitive, that can't be structured around that flexibility, that we rotate fairly with our on-call situation, and we rotate, okay, who's going to do the weekend home visits this weekend, so you know confidently that you'll have that following weekend off. So we do have some flexibility, but when you add birth into the mix, You just have so many variables outside of our control. We can't tell the babies at 2 in the morning, hey, wait till our office opens at 8. It doesn't work that way. So when you choose to do services that aren't around the realm of the birth side, you have tons of flexibility. You can decide to do evenings, you can decide to do your clinic on Saturday mornings, you can decide to do maybe a couple days you open at 7 a.m. and you're done by noon, and you're going to catch a couple of those ladies that can't get work off and would like to come into your office before they go in at 8:30. So you are in control, you determine your schedule. If you just want to be 8 to 5, you want to be 2 days a week, 12 hours, and get in 25, 30 hours in a couple days with your administration and the visits, you can do that. That's the really cool part about running your practice. But just knowing if you're going to add parts to your practice services like the birth aspect, there's not as much flexibility when the mama needs you to help. You want to create an accountability culture, not one of fear. And so when we talk about autonomy and accountability, if someone says they're going to do a project, they've got a great idea, they're going to come to a meeting in 2 weeks and present it, and they don't come in 2 weeks and present it, you want to have direct accountability. Yes, you want people to be autonomous, but they have to be autonomous in the specific things they said they're going to do. There's a very big difference between poor work productivity and autonomy. Autonomy has to do with completing your tasks, completing your expectations. You're getting paid to do X amount of things, but you can do them on your terms and your style and your research flow. Things happen, mistakes happen. We're all on a learning curve, and it's how you approach it. It's how you look at the systems. Most of the time there's a mistake, there's a breakdown of communication that has to do with your policies, your protocols, your training manuals, your branding. Looking as a business owner, direct accountability of you, that how do I improve the system so this doesn't happen again? How do we make it so our staff feels comfortable to bring up mistakes, to notice and advocate for systems no matter what level, whether you're the boss or whether you're another colleague at the same level? You want each other to feel comfortable in a culture that we can point out near misses, we can give a different perspective, and we can have conversations with each other respectfully. So when you start getting negative, you start feeling hostility, anger, tension, it creates a spiral effect where people don't really voice honestly their opinions. The culture starts going into the spiral effect, and you just don't get that great innovation. You don't get that great visionary creativity. People are just coming to the job to get their paycheck and do their day-to-day, versus they really want to better the practice and the culture in the future. So you want to look at, this is a pros and cons. Some midwives are comfortable with this and some aren't. If you decide to start a C corporation or an S corporation, you will have stocks, you can have shareholders. You could have part of a vesting period for your team. You join the team, and in 3 years you can start purchasing or get a bonus of stocks within the company, because now they know if the company makes money, they're going to make money, versus they get their salary, their hourly rate, whether you're making a ton or you're losing. So if there's stocks, there's bonuses, there's incentives directly within it, they know if they give better customer care, they are a little more productive, they get creative improving systems and streamlines, it's going to increase the bottom line of the profit sharing to everyone. So there's that balance of, you don't have to make them a business partner, but you can make them shareholders where they have a small part of the decision making. Because technically shareholders are buying into the company, but it's not like a 50-50 split. If you have 1,000 stocks and they buy one, they have a very tiny portion of the decision making, but they're getting profits from the overall company. So it's a really good incentive, versus revenue value units, which are used in a big healthcare system. That pushes the assembly line. It doesn't improve the quality. It doesn't improve outcomes. Having a stock share buyback or a stock share bonus they can get after a certain vesting period is a really good idea for long-term committed staff. Asking your team's opinion and then really listening, this is sometimes hard because we want honest opinions, but we also puts us vulnerable. If they feel you're directly not, you didn't say something at the meeting professionally, or it was interpreted very discriminating of something you said or a system you put in place, they think there's a better way to do it. You have to be humble, you have to be honest, and truly want your staff to give their honest opinion and not penalize them for giving it. So you want to not just go through the flow and see there's issues and problems and then just have the blame cycle of, well, it's her problem, it's her issue. It always happens with this staff member. Well, I'll fix it later, or it only happens once in a great while, so we're not going to worry about it. You want to take opportunities of near misses, poor customer service, unhappy staff, outdated policies, quality measures very seriously. When you do those surveys, you do those outreach programs, you want your branding, your reputation from the very beginning, the very end to be the best as possible. And so sometimes it comes just from the inside. Your employees will see so much more that customers will not see, and every part of your team will bring a different value and a unique perspective based on their beliefs, culture, and their job role they have within the team. So I really want you to think about when you have staff meetings, when you have evaluations with your employees, I want it not just to be a one-way street where the boss is telling the evaluation. You want it back and forth. You want opinions, you want feedback, you want a mutual evaluation, you want a mutual staff meeting, you want it to be engaged, that everyone's opinions do matter, and you can make a better product and a better company in the long run by doing that type of mental shift. It's really hard for your staff to be autonomous and to work on projects and to do the best they can if you as the business owner are not giving them proper training. You're so busy, you throw them to the wolves, you have them join your team, and you're like, I need a birth assistant, come help me tomorrow, and they're like anxious, and there's some mistakes that happen in tension. And if you don't give them the proper training, a birth assistant training, certifications, orientation with another team member, a training manual, policies, scripts, it makes it hard for the employees to do the best they can. As far as your midwife colleagues, like, you're going to have different styles, you're going to have different beliefs, but you want to give them access to evidence-based systems. So evidence-based birth, up to date. There's so many wonderful tools out there. Paying portion of their continuing education, paying their regulatory licensure renewals, having staff training, peer reviews, having an opportunity for all of us to grow together. If you don't put those things in place, you don't even have staff meetings, everybody just does their own thing. It is our responsibility. Those are the tools, those are the systems, those are the ways for everyone to practice and to perform at their maximum potential. So we want autonomy, but we also want to make resources available for people in writing to reference, to look at, to know the chain of command of who to go to for XYZ is only going to improve your practice and the team's autonomy and their satisfaction. So there's different ways to communicate, and I think it's really important from the very first day of an interview process to staff meetings to evaluations, you want to consistently communicate your vision and your mission statement. You want it up in your waiting room on the wall. You want it part of all your initial client handouts. You want it in the break room. You want it on the website. You want it somewhere consistently that's referenced, not just as much for your customers, but also for your staff. So if they're bringing you an idea for a project or improving a streamlined thing, you're going to want to reference back to your mission and core values of the practice. Is this something being presented that is in alignment of where you guys want to be and what your services offer? Or do we need to tweak this project idea because currently it does not fit our mission and values? And so you want to have that clear, consistent communication, especially when you start considering firing a staff or disciplinary actions. Having that mission and that vision statement and clear expectations of accountability in writing is really going to help with the professionalism and the smooth transition of new staff and letting go of other staff. You want to take a step back. I think it's hard sometimes for us as midwives. We're so terribly busy, and I did this with my private practice, is you go through the motions day by day. You're like, I'm going to get to the office, I'm going to start seeing patients, I got a chart afterwards, my staff needs some help, but I don't even have time to truly answer their question. And they see how busy I am, so they don't even really ask me questions, and it creates this vicious cycle. So sometimes stepping back, and stepping back may be the extreme of I need to close my practice, I need to take a long holiday and have another midwife take over for me. I need to just allot my office schedule breaks more often. I need to get a better work-life balance. I need to do miracle morning and start meditating and exercising. I need to step back of who I am, why I started this practice, and where do I want to go. With my private practice I had for a few years, I had to step back. I was losing my identity. I was going through the motions. The systems I had set up were crumbling because I didn't know what I didn't know. And when you step back, your identity of being a mom and a wife and a daughter and anything else but a midwife was slowly getting lost. And so I needed to step back and see, could I fix the practice? Could I restructure it to fit what I needed? And I needed a break from being on birth call 24/7 for 5 years. And it was very difficult to find collaborating options. It was difficult to financially just say, we're not going to take clients for 5 weeks. And then we'd have to think 9 months in advance. I needed a break now. I was very emotionally burnt out. And so stepping back for your practice and just seeing, what are the systems? What is the mission? What does our team look like? Is there certain jobs that can be put into someone else's realm because they have the right personality and skill sets for it? Where do we want to go as a practice? Just stepping back and looking at your team and looking at your system. Is it set up to the autonomy style that I want? Are my staff working at that caliber of where I want us all to be? And just separating and setting up time. So having a great break room, having a do not disturb time in your office every day so you can really get things done. Otherwise it just keeps piling up. And just giving that balance of when you're available and when you're not available. And you want to have that respect. So you're not going to call your office manager on Sunday because you can't find something. You want to have a mutual respect back and forth for that undisturbed time when you're working and when you're not working, and when things are designated for meetings or designated for administration time, or I'm just going to take a step back and go on my lunch break for a walk every day for the next couple weeks. So you just have to figure out with you and your team, how do you set up those system and flows so you're autonomous, you're respecting everyone, and you have a happy work environment. So you want to support the growth of the mind. Like, we have staff and we hire them, and you see some potential and passion they have. Maybe getting them a couple books that you find online that will really stimulate that part of their creativity and their skill set. Just showing that you care, going above and beyond, having professional development, having speakers come to staff meetings, having maybe there's some online conference that you think would be great for your team to go to. It's so amazing if we could do professional development as a group. You could do dinners, you could have potlucks, you could have that team camaraderie growth together on top of that personal growth. Mistakes are going to happen, and it's that mindset shift that mistakes are an opportunity to learn. Mistakes are not a negative thing. That's what we're taught our entire life from when we were young. And I really want to stress, the more mistakes you make, the faster you're going to learn. If you're doing everything perfect and right, you're not going to learn. You're going to be comfortable. You're not going to grow and improve. And so when there is a mistake, there is a near miss, it's really important for us as the directors, the business owners, to see, is it my own mistake? Is it my team's mistake? Most of the time, it's not the person, it's the systems, it's the processes, it's the lack of training. And so we want to have regular communication. We want to have regular opportunities for them individually to pick, hey, part of our evaluation criteria to get your bonus in a year is you pick out a project, you volunteer in the community. I'm not going to tell you what that project is. I'm going to tell you some ideas of things we would love to work on here. You present me an idea. We'll work throughout the year on that. So you want to create autonomy, but you also don't want them to be just to the extreme of independence. So you want to reinforce the mission and vision. You want to give them the proper tools, and you want to encourage that professional development for them. Hiring the right people. I've talked about this many times, that this is one of the most critical things a business owner can do, because it'll make or break your practice. It'll change your culture overnight. If you Just because you have a great resume in front of you, you want to get to know their personality. You want to get to know how they handle tough situations and how that interpersonal relationship with the colleagues goes. Because if you're putting together this vision and dream and you hire a couple people that initially seem great and awesome, but they're not doing their job, their productivity level's low, it's going to affect the entire office, because everybody's not going to want to work their butt off when they know that other colleague is making the same that they are, but they always show up late, they call into work, they sit around and look on their phone. Like, you want to put a caliber and you want to have clear expectations. Even though they're autonomous, these are the things you expect them to get done. So from that interview process, from staff meetings, from a clear disciplinary expectation, if you call in X amount of times, we go into this algorithm of disciplinary. If there is a productivity level, or you're not attending staff meetings, you're not doing XYZ part of that job description, that's part of those clear communications. So you want to improve autonomy. You want to advocate for people that are hard workers, visionaries, they're passionate about what you're doing. Training is the easy part. So supporting that professional development, we already talked about it, and it's like communication styles, negotiating, career development. I love to hire birth assistants, receptionists that want to be doulas, want to be lactation consultants, want to be midwives in training, because I'm looking at them as a long-term investment. I want people that are going to grow with our practice and see it from both angles. I want midwives to join our team that have been receptionists, been birth assistants, been on all angles. That's their orientation. That's their love and passion. So that's part of that. My personal opinion, when I do the professional development discussion, do they want to be a receptionist their entire life? Which is fine. But my goal is to hire people that professional development, always growing, always learning. Where is their ultimate vision of where they want to be, and how can I help them create that? So thinking more broadly, like just taking whatever you can. Obviously with birth, you can't just determine when the babies are going to come, but having flexible work hours. I had a couple awesome receptionists that all of a sudden her mom was watching the kids but couldn't do it anymore. And so she couldn't come in as early as she was the last few weeks, because she has to get the kids to school. So as long as things are getting done, and I looked at it, okay, I could check somebody in for the first visit. She'll be here by 9. Like, let's have some flexibility. I want her to stay around. She obviously has to get her kids to school. She's a mom. I want her to have a good work-life balance. And so we look at it in a more broadly creative way. Holiday pay, what days are considered holidays, what benefits you're going to offer. Like when we talked about insurance with our practice, I had a conversation with them. I'm like, okay, do you guys want a certain company? Do you want deductibles? Do you want a flex spending account? Do you want a health savings account? Like, anytime we were considering adding a new budget, a new job description, a new system or flow, I wanted the feedback from my team, because we were going to have a better product and we were having a better system after everybody gave their opinion. I don't want to get a high deductible insurance plan when everybody else doesn't want that. So I really want to stress, you want to think creatively, you want to think more broadly, and you want autonomy among yourself and your team, and for them to feel comfortable bringing those conversations. Like even the location extent, some of your team, especially if they're working on projects, they're higher level in administration, there's no meetings. If they're going to sit in their office all day, why can't they sit in their office at home? When you build that relationship, you have that trust, you know they're a hard worker, you know they're going to get things done. It's only going to help with that relationship, especially with COVID. we really wanted to limit that human interaction as much as possible. So it was hybriding, it was more telemedicine, it was more, you can do telemedicine from anywhere. You don't have to sit in the office. You could sit at your home as long as you have access to the internet, the resources, the EMR system. So getting a hybrid location flexibility for your staff, as long as things are getting accomplished. You have a couple locations, like where do you want to be this day, who wants to be here, like you work as a team to take care of the clients and do it what works best for each person's role on the team. So higher autonomy can build greater resilience, I think, as midwives, and when we are around birth and it's being available 24/7, 99% of the time it's the best thing in the world. But, there are once in a while bad outcomes, there's dissatisfied clients, there's a lot of emotional strain. And so we want to build resiliency. We want to create advocacy for our staff. We don't want them to burn out and get stressed and frustrated and have anxiety and depression. We want autonomy among ourselves. That's why we become business owners, but we also want that balance of autonomy and respect for our team members. So if you do a lot of micromanaging and you don't give a lot of choice for your team and you're telling them exactly what they have to do all the time, they learn to be dependent on you, and then you're going to get more questions asked of you. You're going to need to micromanage. It becomes this vicious cycle. So we want to step back as a business owner, and how do we create a more autonomy in our lives, in our business structure? How do we create more autonomy for our staff, where we're supporting them, we're giving them the right resources, we're creating that atmosphere where they're not needing you as much. They're not needing you for resources and questions and calling you after you get home. It's just going to make everybody else as a group so much happier. So autonomy is about the freedom of developing oneself. You increase your knowledge, you determine what you love, where you want to be in life, the type of work schedule you want to have, the type of job you want to have. We are very autonomous in ourselves. When you choose to work for someone else, you choose to work at a bigger hospital system, some parts of your practice are going to be autonomous, how your style of education to clients are, but you lose some of that autonomy of choice and scope of practice and your office schedule and your vacation time that so many entrepreneurs absolutely love. Midwives are excellent candidates to start private practice. We emphasize the quality. We want the autonomy. We want the control of that good work-life balance with being a mom ourselves. And so it's really important to promote autonomy within our practices and to acknowledge it's just as important for us as it is for our staff members.